Pope Francis has asked for prayers for his predecessor, former Pope Benedict XVI, saying he is very sick. The Vatican says the 95-year-old had a sudden worsening of his health but is receiving constant medical care.
Well, the former head of the Catholic Church became the first pope in 600 years to resign when he stepped down in 2013. Well, we can speak now to Brenden Thompson, who is CEO at Catholic Voices. Good morning to you, Brenden, and thanks so much for joining us. This is really concerning news for not only people at the Vatican, but for Catholics all around the world. What do we know about the health of Pope Benedict XVI? What do we know so far?
The answer is we don't know very much at the moment. So it took everyone by surprise that yesterday at his weekly general audience, Pope Francis asked for prayers. He said to pray for this faithful servant of the church who is sustaining the church with his prayers, and so we pray for him. And the Vatican media has been very tight-lipped up until now about the state of health of the former Pope, Pope Benedict XVI. And so at the moment, it's just it's a waiting game as to see what is going on with Pope Benedict. There are lots of reports and stories about what might be going on with his health, but now I think is a time really to pray for him and to reflect on his life and his legacy.
So for those, Brenden, who are watching and listening and perhaps aren't familiar with Pope Benedict, tell us about him as a person, and when he does eventually pass on, it may not be now, it could be in the future, what will his legacy be?
Yeah, so Pope Benedict XVI, who was born Joseph Aloysius Ratzinger, born in 1926, so actually he was a year younger than the Queen. And I think much like the Queen, he'll be remembered as a very dutiful Christian servant throughout his very, very long life and career under different circumstances and with very different challenges. I think ultimately his legacy, he won't be remembered as a great manager or as a great charismatic, kind of media personality, but he will be remembered as one of the foremost great Christian thinkers and teachers of our age. To have seen or to have read Benedict is to really have been profoundly moved by a man who was involved in some of the most seismic political and religious events of the last century.
Now, it's true to say that the two popes, Benedict and Francis, are great friends, aren't they? For the last 9 years, even after not being in the role, Benedict still lives within the Vatican. So they have a huge and close personal relationship as well, don't they?
Yeah, Pope Francis at times has referred to Benedict as like his grandfather, and he hasn't neglected in public to go and make visits to Santa Marta where he's staying. This is seen really as a kind of prayerful retreat. He hasn't taken a vow of silence by going in there, but has very much been praying through his suffering and also through various bits of writing, really contributing, as he has throughout his entire life in the church. And so it's no surprise that Pope Francis is really asking for prayers for this person that he truly admires.
Catholic, as CEO of Catholic Voices, how are you taking this news? Because despite his age, it has come as a shock to the Catholic community, hasn't it?
Sure, I remember the resignation way back in over a decade ago, nearly. And I remember being really shocked, as everyone was. I was profoundly, as a young Catholic, I was really shaped by Pope Benedict. I found him utterly inspiring. I think having grown up with this slightly God's Rottweiler image, I came to have the German Shepherd actually as the image. This kind of serene, intellectual man, and someone whose writing profoundly moved me personally in my faith, but also as someone who wanted to think seriously about Christianity. And I know for Catholics around the world, they're seriously praying. It's not a great tragedy when somebody who's 95 dies, but really the prayers are to sustain him in this final part of his Christian journey, to have a beautiful death, you might say. So I know that there are loads of people who are talking about personal and less personal testimonies, but just want to reflect on the great contribution of this great churchman of our age.
Brenden, really moving words there to end our discussion this morning, and thoughts and prayers as well to the Catholic community, who I know have been really shocked by this news. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.